It did not look horrible for a 2012 movie. But there you go. Point for Kyle as we take you up to 2 p.m. Kyle, Zach LaVine has been scoring points, but doesn't seem like he's been scoring points with any other teams. That's a double segue for you. Boom, baby. That's a 4.5, Kyle. Let's hear.
Senor Segue strikes again.
Again.
Senor Segue strikes again.
That's a double for you, baby. All right, Kyle. We want to know what your favorite scary movies are. That's where I was going with that. 916-339-1140 and on the Sack Chat. But we also want to know what is scaring teams away from Zach LaVine. Triple segue,
Senor
baby.
Segue strikes
Is that the
again.
first ever triple Senor Segue?
Let's hear what Sam Amick had to say.
Like, I just can't tell you one team that is monitoring Zach LaVine with even the remote possibility of them saying, yeah, let's do it. I don't know. Maybe that team exists. I'm not aware of it. So, like Milwaukee comes to mind, and they have no flexibility anymore. But a team like that that's desperate to contend, and is there some way to add another piece? Well, there's no way for them to pull something like that off. They don't have picks. They're not going to, give you Miles Turner. That would defeat the purpose. Again, it's in a vacuum a good thing for the Kings and their fans that Zach is playing well. I just don't know what it means going forward.
That was Sam Amick, of course, of The Athletic. And, okay, well, hearing it, things can change. I think the most important piece was him bringing up the Bucks, who obviously could use the scoring, but, yeah, they do not have that Zach LaVine contract is just it's too much, right? I'm looking here. Kyle Kuzma makes 22. And Miles Turner, who they just signed, 25. They wouldn't do that. I don't know, Kyle. I mean, anybody that they could that's worth any type of money, they would want because that's how they're going to compete. If you move on from Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis, which that's 35, so maybe you could scratch the couch and, look under the couch to find enough. You're still looking under the couch for another $10 million somewhere. But again, okay, you got Giannis, Miles Turner, Zach LaVine, whoever you have left from scraping under the couch, and that's it. That there's no way that the Bucks can pull it off. The reason I didn't initially feel bad about it because it feels like this was more of a timing thing. Like the obvious pick is the Bucks right now, and we're not going to talk injury in that way because we're not wishing injury upon anyone. But let's remove the Bucks and other teams, and that's what we're going to do at 12 o'clock. There's a specific team, but that's more than just DeMar. Yeah, I'm not worried about it as far as Zach LaVine is concerned because it's just so early. But I think Sam's point is early or late, it's just a lot of money.
So here's why Sam mentioned the Bucks specifically, because when Zach LaVine was on the Bulls, the Bucks were the other team that was pursuing him at the trade deadline. The Kings ended up getting him because they gave up everything they gave up, a franchise cornerstone player, and was willing. The Bulls only got back, expiring contracts mostly, or Trey Jones, who's actually been a decent player for them.
So, hey, he should be a King, by the way, but continue.
Yes, both of them should be, Zach Collins and Trey Jones. But hey, if the last segment told us anything, we can still get Zach Collins.
Great.
But the reason why was because they were going to have to move enough money to match Zach LaVine's contract. And once they moved Chris Middleton and bought out Damian Lillard, or I guess bought out is they waived and stretched Damian Lillard's contract, so that money wasn't available to be traded anymore. The Bucks just can't trade for a player making more than $30 million. And I think that's kind of at the crux of the Zach LaVine conversation. It's not that nobody wants Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine's averaging 28 points per game right now on high efficiency numbers compared to where he's been at his entire career. Like, people want that, but you'd have to give up $40 million worth of players in order to make that upgrade. And there's only so many players and combinations of players making $40 million that you can trade out. So that's kind of where the restriction on LaVine is what you'd have to give up in order to get him.
Yeah, and again, we have a team that we're going to talk about at 12 o'clock who might be interested in somebody from the Kings. But yeah, as far as Zach LaVine is concerned, I don't know, man. is there any world, and I know you have this list, the 9 teams that could convince Zach LaVine to opt out this summer. These are just teams that have that cap space. The Nets, the Hornets, the Bulls, the Pistons, the Clippers, the Lakers, Portland, Utah, and Washington. I think a lot of these teams make sense. I'm actually going to start with a team. I'm not going to do the Clippers quite yet. I'm not going to do the Lakers. And I think all these teams make sense. I think Detroit makes sense. Everybody needs a shooter like Zach LaVine. And a shooter like Zach LaVine making, 38 is pretty appealing, right? And I don't know what it would be, but it ain't going to go from 40. That's the other thing. It ain't going to go from 47 to 32.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
We've done this calculation before, right? If Zach LaVine were to opt into this deal and hit the open market in 2027, what would Zach LaVine get? You have to do that and then spread out the extra money over the length of whatever his contract is, right? So if you think Zach LaVine would make $35 million a year in free agency in 2027, then you got to pay him $40 million a year for the life of his contract. Right. If you think he's worth $30 million, you got to pay him $36 million for the length of his contract.
Yes, and it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. Even in the situation with Kyrie Irving, these guys aren't giving back money. They are dispersing the money differently.
Yes.
They're not, and I think myself, I had to realize that with this Kyrie thing. Hey, you can restructure and save some cash. Well, you're spending the cash differently. You're not saving cash.
Like if you're going to pay Zach, let's say $35 million next year, then you're going to have to find a way to pay him that $12 million, or I'm sorry, that $15 million he left on the table by opting out of his deal. So you're going to have to spread it out $15 million over the length of his contract. So yeah, probably let's say $40 million a year.
So the team that I saw, Kyle, that I thought was interesting was Charlotte. Because I don't know what's going to happen with Brandon Miller, but he can't stay healthy. And unless they're going to re-blow this thing up again, Charlotte has some good young talent. And
Con Kneppel looks good.
He looks good. Maybe the only issue is maybe they already have a lot of Zach LaVine type of players on that squad. But that's a team where, not this season, but next season with this cap space, hey, you come down here, LaMelo can get you the rock. And we can do some things. That's a team I would keep an eye on, not just for Zach LaVine, but for a couple, because, this is pretty big for Brandon Miller. At some point, this is no disrespect. We wish you the best. And LaMelo, the same thing. We said at the beginning of the season, both these dudes, we got to see if they can finish the season. So that's just what it is.
Yeah, and the Hornets one, while they won't have $40 million in cap space next year, they do have next year an expiring $26 million-ish contract they could sign and trade in Miles Bridges. And while I'm a hard no on bringing Miles Bridges to the Kings, if the Kings were to go this route, you could just do it and then buy out Miles Bridges and say, goodbye. We're just using this to facilitate. Maybe they get a pick from the Hornets or something like that.